And we're back with Juan Sequeda. The first thing I want to do is just say thank you, Juan, for being part of data.world. I think for those of you who don't know, data.world provides a ton of free data out there. So if you're learning, you want to explore something new and interesting, have some questions about stuff, they have like, I don't know, I've been asking questions about summer. So Juan, before I intro you, I'm gonna ask you this question. What's the most interesting data that you've found on the data.world platform?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, there's a lot of private data and public data. The private data, I want to say it's actually my own my wine list. So I keep private data sets, and I have my
That's
entire wine
awesome.
collection in data.world. So that's a private
Okay.
one. On public
Mhm.
one, I have to go say the COVID data. Like all of the
Mm,
COVID, New York Times, John Hopkins, like when COVID started, we started
mhm,
working with so many of these different entities,
mhm.
and all of that data is on data.world. Like the AP, for example, they run all of their data journalism uses all the data that they actually put on data.world. So we are
That's
very,
awesome.
very humbled and very just kind of so thankful we're able to go help as much as we could by hosting
Yeah,
this open data on data.world for COVID.
that is exciting. Well, that's not the example or the answer I expected. So actually two better ones that I would have expected. So that's awesome. So let me introduce you. This is Juan Sequeda, principal scientist at data.world. He joined data.world through an acquisition of Capsenta. You can probably talk to that. You are a PhD in computer science from the University of Texas at Austin. No small feat at all. Recipient of the NSF Graduate Research Fellowship and received second place in the 2013 Semantic Web Challenge. A ton of other career accolades. What does that even? Sorry, what does that even mean? I'm really curious what that is.
So I come from an academic background. I'm a scientist by training, scientist by heart. I continue to have PhD students and do research. So just a lot of the work that we see today around knowledge graphs comes from this whole area of the semantic web for the last 15 plus years. So I've been in this data and knowledge space for over 15 years, and I'm just really excited that we're just advancing more and more.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to hearing about the talk data products ABCs. And just for a reminder for the folks listening and watching, there is a chat and there's a Q&A. So please put in your questions for the Q&A, and we'll talk with Juan on the end of this and address those questions. So take it away, Juan.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Well, thank you for the for census and the entire community for organizing this. I'm really excited to talk about our data products ABC framework here. But before I dive in, just kind of a little bit background. As Trevor was saying, data.world, many people may know data.world as having an open data catalog. We're an enterprise data catalog for the modern data stack powered by knowledge graphs. We started out in the open data community. We have over a million or 1.5 million users on our open data community with 500,000 data sets. We're a B Corp, which means that we're a public benefit corporation. So in addition to making sure that we maximize shareholder value, we have a public benefit mission, which is to be the world's most largest and abundant data resource in the world, to advocate for open data and linked data standards, and to be an archive for the world's data. And what we've done over the first 3 years of the company is that we did this open data catalog, and then we've perfected the user experience and everything, and we passed that on to the enterprise. So that's where we are as a company, and kind of just a little bit more recently, the Forrester Wave came out as the enterprise data catalogs, and we're a leader in the enterprise data catalog space. So that's just kind of a little bit about the background of data.world. And about me a little bit. So I worked at data.world. I'm the principal scientist here. I joined almost 3 years ago when I sold my previous company called Capsenta to data.world. That was a company I started out of my PhD research in computer science at the University of Texas at Austin. And I've been working on data integration using semantics knowledge for like 15 plus years. So I really like to be in this bridge of industry and academia. And I've written a couple of books. The latest one has been about designing and building enterprise knowledge graphs. And one of the things that I've been doing lately, the pandemic started, was having our podcast. So together with Tim Gasper, who's our VP of product here, we host every Wednesday live at 4 p.m. Central, Catalog and Cocktail. It's an honest, no BS, non-salesy data podcast. Honest, no BS. I tell people I don't have time for bullshit. So apologies if I swear sometimes, but it's like, let's go to the real thing here. So we've had 95 different episodes for all types of data leaders and stuff. So this is actually a precursor, because a lot of the stuff that we're presenting today about the data products are things that have come up in discussions over the last 2 years, talking to tens, if not hundreds, of data leaders through our podcast. So, with that preamble, let's dive in. This is the thesis. This is what I want you to take away. I believe that consuming data to be able to go solve those critical business problems that you have, it should be as easy as buying a product on your favorite e-commerce platform like Amazon or whatever. So think about it. If I go right now and I'm searching for a water bottle, right? I have my water bottle here. I have an intention. I'm searching for this. I already know what I want. I just, there's so much stuff out there. So I'm going to go search and look for water bottles. And what do we see here? The first thing we go see is that we have on the left-hand side, you have like entire taxonomy, right? There's the semantics, the meaning, all the things around what a water bottle, that characteristics around a water bottle that I can go look at. Now, in addition to that, I get a list of different water bottles to go look at. And they're ranked. They're ranked, some may be sponsored. They're ranked, in this case, you can see that they're ranked by the number of stars and the number of reviews to go do this. What are we probably going to go do? We're probably going to click on that first one, the one that has the most reviews on that. And when I click on that, I actually get into the page of that product. And I get all this information about that product. It gives me all the different sizes, all the different colors, the material, the capacity, as you can see. I get much more detailed information around this. I can start getting a little bit more of the ratings, the customer ratings around this. Again, we get much more detailed information if I want to know more specifics about the weight, about the item numbers, and so forth. I also get, hey, whoever bought this product also bought it with some other products. Hey, whoever used this data is also using it with this other data. And this is the value, the cost that it comes with that. I also can compare the different products. Guess what? There's not just only one water bottle product on Amazon. There's going to be hundreds, if not thousands. I want to be able to go compare what these different products are and have different characteristics that I'm comparing again. Again, there's not going to be only one product about customers or marketing data. There may be multiple of them, and you want to be able to go compare them to see if it fits your particular needs, your use cases. Finally, there's also questions. People can be asking questions around that stuff. And guess what? If somebody's asking a question, most probably other people are going to have that same type of question. So how about if we crowdsource those questions and those answers around that? So, and finally, we get into more reviews, right? We can get detailed reviews. People can really explain what they want, share pictures around these things. So this is the mindset. This is what I want people to start thinking about, that we need to start really thinking that this is what I mean by treating data as a product. It's really about taking that data, those data sets, and provide that type of experience, just like somebody who's purchasing a product on Amazon or whatever is your favorite e-commerce platform. So kind of in a very cute way, so Tim Gasper and I have been kind of talking to a lot of people, a lot of our guests, a lot of prospects, customers, friends, and we've come up with this framework that we said, what characterizes a data product? Now, if you look out right now, like what is a definition of a data product? It's all over the place, and having a very succinct definition, I have not found one, and the ones that we do find, they're very kind of all over the place. So what we were trying to go do is try to understand this framework. So a couple of different characteristics that we can start kind of defining what a data product is. We call them the ABCs because cutely, it kind of all works out. Accountability, boundaries, contracts and expectations, downstream consumers, and explicit knowledge. Now, what I really want this to be is kind of a two-way conversation. This is something that we're presenting based on a lot of our conversations, but at the same time, I don't know if this is the right thing. So I would really love the feedback from everybody in the audience and say, I agree, or no, Juan, I completely disagree with this one, or hey, you completely missed this stuff, or I would change something. So hopefully this is a conversation that we have in the community that we're going to continue having going forward. So let's start with accountability. And by accountability, by the way, for all of these ABCs, I'm really just going to pose a bunch of questions that I think that we need to be answering. I'm not saying we have to go do all of these. I'm not saying this is a complete list of questions. I'm just like, these are the things that come to mind. So if we talk about accountability, who owns this data product? Who is responsible for this data product? right? And I'll be honest that a lot of people actually don't like the word ownership because it means like, oh, this is mine, I'm protecting it. And fair point. So a lot of other words that we hear is like, who's the trustee, or actually who's the ambassador, who's promoting this data product, right? So who did it? But the bottom line is who's responsible for it. And when you're responsible for it, you want to define the requirements, right? You want to understand what requirements are out there, and this data product is going to satisfy those requirements or not. Who fixes it when it breaks? People are going to be using that. If something's not working, they need to know who exactly is going to go fix it, and actually who's on call. I mean, if you go in software, people still have pagers and like, oh, you're on call right now. Who is going to be on call for data around it? Where does the liability sit? If this happens to be a very very crucial data set and something very bad happens with it, and we get fined or whatever, where does that liability of that data set? So that's the accountability part. That's A. B, for boundaries. This is what a lot of the, again, this is, you can imagine, this is where the product managers are going to come in. They're going to start thinking about this. You're going to get requirements and you're going to go say, hey, what is this thing? What is it? And what isn't it? What is, I mean, you may want to go use this data for some particular use case, but that data wasn't made for that use case. You're not supposed to go do that. What is the boundaries? Literally, almost think about it, draw a box and say, does this thing, is it inside the box? Is it outside the box? That's how I can know what the boundaries is of this data product. What are the inputs? What are the outputs? What constitutes this data product? What goes inside of it? Outputs. What is it? What should it be used for? And then at the same time, like, these data products are probably not going to be static. They're going to go evolve, and they're going to go evolve based on the requirements that we're gathering. So what is the roadmap of this product? If the product today is this box, is it going to increase this way, that way, and why? And if it is, if the decision is going to increase one particular way, what is that roadmap towards that, right? How are you balancing this against other priorities that you may have? So that's the boundaries. Contracts and expectations. What is the purpose of this data product? This data product exists for what reason? People are going to go use this product. They're expecting what from it? So what are those use cases? And not all use cases may be for this particular data product. And that's fine. Let's make that explicit in there, right? How is this product being tested? And how is it being monitored, if at all? And maybe it doesn't need to. Again, it depends on the use cases and the users that we'll talk about in a second. What are the SLAs? What are the SLOs that you're guaranteeing about this data product? If this product is going to be used across different parts of the organization, or maybe even outside the organization, what is the sharing agreements around this? Who can actually use this particular product? Within the organization, is there only a subset of people? Does this have crucial financial information? Therefore, only finance folks in the organization can go use that, and outside of the finance, they cannot use that? Or does it have some PII data, some sensitive data? What are the policies around that? How is this product expected to perform and scale? Is this going to be living? Where is this going to be living? Right? What is the expectations about how am I supposed to access this? Quality. Everybody loves to talk about quality, right? Well, quality is in the eye of the beholder. So you are defining what sort of quality constraints around this, and how are they being maintained? Some people may want to have a particular metric from 0 to 100. Some people may say, is this green, yellow, or red? Some people say yes or no. Again, depends on the types of users that you are, that you're creating this data product for, and what is their expectations around that. And how is it being kept secure? Who can go use this? Who can't use it? Maybe you can see it, but you can't use it. Again, what are these contracts and expectations? Finally, again, these are just a list of questions. I'm not saying they're complete. I'm very eager to know if any other questions people may be considering around this. Downstream consumers. This beta product is being defined for whom? Who is the ultimate consumer for this? Is it a data analyst? Is it a data scientist? Is it a machine learning engineer? Is it somebody in the finance department? Is it somebody in the marketing department? Understand who those very specific consumers, those personas are. At the same time, understand who are the potential consumers. I don't want to just go build one product for one consumer. I'm done. I want to make sure that this can go scale and say, hey, this is being built for this use case, but I know that there's other possible use cases out there that either one, this product can expand to support, or there's other products that combined together can go support more types of use cases. What are those types of products? What are those types of use cases, those types of current users and potential users, and those potential types of use cases that we go do? And what is the value of this data product? And there was a question right in the previous talk about talking about value. I think this is a very important aspect to be considered, is that if we are creating these data products, and these data products are being created for a particular user, that they have a particular use case, as a data product manager, you really need to go understand what is a use case, how valuable is it? Basically say, hey, if this data is not delivered to you, what's the consequences? How much money are we leaving on the table? How much money are we losing? Are we able to go quantify this? At the end of the day, all of this needs to be connected to money. We live in organizations in a capitalist society right here. All this work needs to go. Bottom line is, how much money are we making? How much money are we saving? We need the data products. We need to go define what is the connection to the value. And that's as direct as possible. The data products that are going to be most successful, most used, going to get more stars, and people are going to go use those. Again, how is this data product going to evolve? What is that roadmap based on the different types of users that you're having? And finally, understanding the consumers is also from the technical side. How do they want to consume this? What is their expectation? And as you can see, all these different ABCs, they're interconnected with each other, right? This is also a type of expectation. Is a user going to be somebody who just really wants to download it as a CSV file for now? That's the first point. Or they want to go see it in a Tableau dashboard, or is it more for developers who want to have an API endpoint, or is it going to be for SQL, or they're going to be a graph interface for this stuff, or you just want to have an S3 buckets because you want to pull into pandas or whatever. Maybe it could be many of these things, but you want to go start on something and then start evolving. I mean, that the interfaces can also be a type of that roadmap that's going to go have. At the end of the day, it should be that same data product has different interfaces. And let's go understand and that's going to depend on who the consumers are, right? A data analyst does not care at all if there's going to be some GraphQL endpoint around that. Now, finally, I think this is the one that we don't speak a lot about. It's about explicit knowledge. What does this data product actually mean? Give me the semantics around this. Let's assume that the data product itself looks like a table, and I think people are going to be thinking about this, like, what does this actually mean? Let's go start with the simplest thing. It is a table called customer, and it has all these different columns. Well, I want that those column names have well-defined meaning. That's why if I'm using a word there, where is that being defined? What are the values that are supposed to be in here? Again, it's also connected to the contracts and expectations around this. We can now start getting into more expressive and getting into the semantics and talking about ontologies to be able to go bring more expressiveness around these things. For example, we know that a telephone number has a very specific type of how it's structured, right? It has a country code, an area code, may have an extension. It has a type. The type can only be of three: home, work, and mobile phone number. All telephone numbers must have a particular type of if I can send a voicemail or not, right? Some voicemail permissioning, and it can be yes or no. That's a very specific type of meaning of what if you see a phone number in there. And these are the constraints. Let's start talking about, hey, if an order, you have a customer and has an address, you say an order must be shipped to exactly one address. So that's how we start defining almost equality, right? These quality types of expectations, we call them, they're connected with the constraints of what this actually means. How is this product related to other products? Make recommendations around that, right? That's where the semantics come in, is you start understanding how these things can be related, or multiple hops, how they can be related. Finally, what is the documentation? Like, give me examples of how people are already using this, or how it could be used, or how it should be used. Let's give very explicit documentation around these things. So this is kind of a very quick example of like if we're thinking about what the ABCs look like. So let's assume that we're like understanding who the users are. I'm going to go create a data product around users or users of our platform. So accountability, who's going to be accountable for this? Well, we're going to say that because this is user data from our platform, actually the product engineering team should be responsible for that. They're the ones who are generating that data through their system. Let's make sure that any issues, they're the ones who are responsible for that. Now, something's going to get implemented. There's going to be some technical stewards who they're going to be responsible for any of the data pipeline stuff, because eventually that data coming from the domain that's going to from the product domain is going to end up, let's say later on, we'll say it's in the Snowflake database, right? So we want to make sure that who's the technical person, the technical steward around that, who's going to be responsible on call for any issues. Maybe we're also going to have somebody who's responsible for more from the business side, right? They're the folks who are going to go interact more with the consumers around these things and be able to go ask, hey, what do you mean by these things, and so forth. We also want to have a data product manager, right? They're the ones who are gathering all these requirements. Now the boundaries, we're going to say, hey, we're only going to consider users that come from our application starting on January 1st, and that they've actually activated their account. Those are what we're going to consider users. And it's going to live in our cloud data warehouse. Contracts and expectations is, if you want to know how many users we have in the platform, well, this is going to be a table inside of our cloud data warehouse, and the number of users is just count the rows in the number in that table users. That's going to be the expectation. No ifs, ands, or buts. That's our definition of that. It's going to have this particular schema. There should be no missing data around that stuff. I'm guaranteeing you, it's expectation. There should be no missing data. This is going to be accessed through SQL, and we're also going to build a set of basic dashboards from these things. That's going to be expectations of how you're going to go consume this data product. Who's going to consume this? Actually, the customer success team. They're the ones who are asking for this. So we're going to start this first particular data product to support the use cases of the customer success team. Maybe the marketing team wants to come along and go use that. Great. We're going to keep track of what the use cases are, and then maybe we're going to go add them to the pipeline, to a kind of our backlog of things. And then very explicitly, we can say, hey, all users can only be associated with one email address, and we can start defining these constraints in here. And then we can also say, hey, we're also building another data product about activities. So let's go, there's another product, and these two things can be joined together. So if you want to be able to go ask questions around metrics around real active customers, well, you want to be able to combine the user data product with the activity data product and go build those types of metrics over that. And then guess what? Maybe other metrics want to go build around that. So this is just a really kind of a very initial example of what we're thinking about a data product, putting the data product ABC frameworks into practice. So to wrap up, data products ABCs, ask yourself, accountability, boundaries, contracts and expectations, downstream consumers, and explicit knowledge. You can probably Google data product ABCs, and you can find an article I wrote on Data Science Center for more information. And with that, thank you very much. Feel free to follow me on LinkedIn, on Twitter, and that's my email. I'm really easy to go find. And join us on Catalog and Cocktails. We're taking a quick break right now, but we'll be back live end of August. And with that, back to you, Trevor.
Hey, that was awesome. I'm blown away by your depth of like understanding of this topic. I mean, without a doubt, it's like a PhD for sure. Also, just as somebody who's practiced SEO for a decade, seeing how somebody who really understands knowledge graphs well was really cool. Also, I think like that was super immediately applicable. I think people like want to talk about data products a lot, but like they don't have necessarily the tools, the framework, right, to like make sure that like they're thinking about this in a really comprehensive way. And I think you've done an excellent job of that. If I summarize it, accountability forces collaboration by design, kind of ish, and we like know our roles. Boundaries, it kind of creates an explicit knowledge about what the thing is and what it isn't, perhaps. Contracts, it's design and definitions. I still am a little fuzzy on that one because I'm like trying to do 10 things at once with this one. Consumers tracks, like it's really nice to know that like you're building a thing for a purpose with people. And then explicit knowledge, I think this is one where you have a really interesting perspective on it. Just so, and this is perhaps to me feels like the least kind of common approach to like thinking about data products. So like, why, what is it like? How did you kind of come up with that perspective? Is that just got your education or what?
Well, I guess it's kind of like, I don't know, over a decade of working with this stuff and dealing it. So I remember once working with a customer, and the user I was talking to, they said, Juan, all I want, give me a table, the customers, and I tell them, yeah, but then you're asking like a table that has 50 columns of all these characters about customers. Like, yes, that's all I want. Just give me that, and I won't bother you anymore. It's like, well, so if I give you that, what are you going to be able to accomplish with this? Well, I could do this and this and this, because right now I'm doing all these stuff, and if I just had a table with this, and I can open up in Tableau, go do all these things, I can answer all these questions that I'm getting all the time. Like, okay, and we're going off and thinking about all these complicated things. Like, that person, they had a very critical need, and all they needed was somebody to go talk to them and hear them say, I just want a freaking table. That was what that person wanted. Now, a day somebody else may not want the table, but they want the same data. So I
Right.
think the interface of how that data is being used depends on that particular user. So
Hmm.
I mean, having just a lot of examples is like, guess what? Oh, here's the other thing. I don't need technology. I don't need more technology around this stuff. At the end of the day, it's just everything that I went through. There's no technology. Just literally think about this framework and just kind of figure out, I don't know, organize a Jira project to go do to keep track of this stuff, or just do it in a spreadsheet, or you have a data catalog, put it inside your data catalog. I mean, that's what we do here, right? So I think it's super easy to go start. Don't make it more complicated, and go talk to
Yeah.
people. Talk to people, please.
Yeah, no, I think that like you really touched on a lot of things that kind of live in the like um, UX research user UX design space, but like it's just good advice, so like just adopt it. I also like that the framework can be applied to it's just a CSV export, or it's a like functioning app, or it's a like a dashboard, or it's just like yeah, but it doesn't really matter in the end what it is. I have one question, like a specific question. Like in the end, you showed the example table. Is this the best way to document, consolidate knowledge around a product, or, and maybe this is just teeing up data.world, I'm not sure. Is there better ways to kind of like get people to understand and like really focus on this framework for a particular product?
So I know I've said we're the honest, no BS, non-salesy, but let me be a little bit salesy here for a second. And is I think this should be in your data catalog. I think you should. I always call it your. If we think about data catalogs, like I think there's two lenses. There is the technical data catalog for data producers, for data engineers, who need to track the technical metadata, the quality, the lineage, and all that stuff. But you also want to have a catalog for your consumers, the Amazon style of catalog. Those people are looking for the data product, and that's where all that information is all in one place. You just this, however you want to go design the page for that data product to go in there. Those consumers, they don't care about the quality, the lineage, or all that stuff. They don't care about that. They just want to know, can I use this product to go solve the problem I have? I want to be able to go discover that, search that very quickly. And it is that search discovery kind of experience for the consumer is very different from the producer. So when you think about data catalogs, you want to understand, is it a catalog for engineers, for engineers, by engineers, for engineers? It's very different from a catalog that wants to do an engineers, but also have the consumers and different types of consumers. Those consumers can be machine learning, can be data analysts, they can be business users. So it's really important to understand that distinction. So all this to go say, it should be in your data catalog, but understand the data catalog that you're using is for what type of consumer. And everything I presented here was for the consumer type of user.
Yeah, awesome. And then I think there's like a lot of our audience, of course, is like, smaller places. So I guess my last question for you is like, and I have an idea about what the answer might be, but at what point should you start thinking about applying a catalog to your data? Are there like certain indicators, markers, kind of thresholds that you should look at?
Well, again, I think it depends on the type of of use cases that you're trying to go tackle, right? If you're a small team of just for data engineers, for data engineers, I mean, at some point you want it for collaboration, so you start growing. We had on our podcast the CTO of the Zebra, Mitish Korea, and he has this great takeaway was the law of threes and tens. Every time 3 and 10 changes, something's going to happen. So three people, 10 people, 30 people, 100 people, 3 products, 10 products, whatever. So think about it in threes and tens. So the way you are in your organization, in your team, in your culture of 3 is going to be different from 10. And 10 can keep going. We get to 30, it's going to change. 30 can go and get to 100, it's going to go change. So I think that is going to be that's a very interesting perspective. I had that podcast episode over a year ago, and I still think about it. So again, I'm plugging the podcast. Please go take a look, listen to it.
Who's the guest on that podcast again? Sorry.
Mitis Korea. He's CTO of the Zebra.
And the podcast is called again?
Catalog and Cocktails.
Catalog and Cocktails. All right, Juan, with that last pitch, folks, you can find him on our website, but also, of course, Catalog and Cocktails. He's pretty easily Googleable guy. I found the ABC framework for data, as he mentioned, on Google. Juan, thank you again for dropping so much explicit knowledge on us. For those of you who are here now, next up we'll have Wenqi Shao and from Webflow talking about product analytics. So we'll be right back in 30 seconds. And yeah, thanks, Juan. We'll see you around.
All right. Bye, everybody. Thank you for having me.